Hey, and welcome to Out of Hiding, a podcast where we focus on growing in God by seeking His truth. Hosted by Dan Morrow and David Flores. I don't know if I'm brave or stupid. What do y'all think? I want to hear what you think.
Oh, I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be awesome.
I'm nervous. I'm not even sitting in the hot seat.
Well, today we have a very special guest. I thought it was fitting after having, two of the four kids to get my wife on, Dawn.
Yeah.
And hear a different perspective, a different side of the mountain, if you will. So, Dawn, welcome to the podcast. Glad you're here. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Dawn. I'm your wife. I've known you a long time, and I'm very, very, very nervous. My heart is beating out of my chest.
Really?
Yes.
Well, just relax, because all we're going to do here is just have a conversation. We're just going to visit. We're going to just discuss. It's just much like having a discussion over dinner. You're really good at that, so pretend that Adam's eating a big steak.
I wish I was.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
So
what do you do right now, Dawn? What do you currently do at Radiant?
Currently, right now, I work at the church. I'm Adam's assistant. I help you with youth. And honestly, I just try to, wherever I see that there's a need or anyone needs help, I just try to be a help to anywhere that's needed.
You do a lot up in the media booth, too.
Yeah,
Yes.
You're the head honcho up there.
Somehow I got in media, actually, because Dan's always done the music, and I wasn't a fit. And one day God was just like, hey, you need to be his helpmate. He really told me that. And I was like, well, where am I helping him at? And so I started helping in media, and it just started rolling, and I started doing more and more and learning it, and just mainly just to help you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
You're always running around on Sundays. I'll call you from the booth. I'm like, hey, what's going on here? You'll run upstairs, run back downstairs.
Yeah, what does Sunday morning look like for you, like in the media booth? Because nobody sees what's going on up there, right? Nobody has a clue.
Yeah.
So, like...
In the media booth, it looks like, well, if you're me, I'm watching every slide. Did that go right? Did this go right? Should this change? And then somebody's
Well, tell us what a slide is, first of all, because a lot of people don't even know what that means.
The backgrounds of the songs that no one else really probably cares about, or what the lighting looks like, or how Pastor Adam's slides look like while he's up there preaching, or if we have video announcements, is that feeding correctly? Is it going to work online? Is it also working in the house? So things like
the
that.
Live stream, the lobby
live
TV.
stream.
Don't downplay us up there.
Okay.
There's a lot going
media
on. The
team is
Spotify
best.
music.
Yes, we always forget to, or
the
I always
lights.
forget to turn it off.
I mean, there's a lot that goes up there. I think, some people think it's just clicking a button, and most of the time it is, but you'll do it for the 8:30 service, and then the 10 o'clock service, all of a sudden, everything goes to whack.
Yep.
It's like, what happened? The lyrics are off. The slides aren't working. It's frozen. It's music won't stop. And then we call Dawn, and she runs up there and clicks on the keyboard 5 million times and stresses and gets it done. So don't downplay it.
No.
You really do a lot up there.
Yeah.
I mean, if it wasn't for you, I know Dan could do it, but he messes it up all the time.
Well, he could.
Yeah,
do
I'm
it.
like that. Y'all remember Mad TV?
Mm-hmm.
It was like SNL's counterpart. Well, they had this crazy tech guy, and he, their email would be jacking up, and he would roll in his chair with a serious look on his face, and she'd be like, "Oh, I don't know what I did. The email just wasn't working." And he, would look at her with a scowl and go, "Oh, so the email is the one that's stupid." That kind of stuff. That's the way I feel like they view me, because I don't even mean to, but I come in there, I'm like, "What'd you do there, you idiot?"
We're gonna get this. We're gonna get this done.
Dan's last call. He's the last call. It's always Dawn first. And then Dawn, obviously, sometimes she's running around. If I can't get a hold of her, last call, and I really pray about it, then I call Dan.
Yes.
I'm like, so he's going to come up here, and he's going to tell me,
Because he's got a million things going on.
Well,
yeah.
I try to be very kind with my people because they are doing a lot, and it's a lot going on. So, so I try to be kind, and I definitely do try not to get Dan involved. He can be kind, but he can be that
I can
guy
be
you were
abrasive.
describing.
Yeah, I could definitely be abrasive and not even realize it. I'm just real direct, I've never flown a 747, but I've flown some smaller planes with people, and I'm pretty sure that the checklist to get a Sunday morning service is more complicated than your basic aircraft. Seriously. There's a million little pieces that
Yeah.
have to come together with a bunch of different team members to produce a Sunday morning here. And Dawn is a pivotal part of that. Which the irony of it is Dawn's never been a tech person. She doesn't really like tech.
No.
Her and computers haven't gotten along, but God's gifted her in that realm and put her in here almost against your will, because you believe you have I always call that a false belief, by the way. You have a false belief that you're not good with tech, and all of the fact here is you are. You do well with it, so
Oh, well, thank you. I
that's a
appreciate
testament
that.
to God using people and showing them things about themselves that they are in disbelief of for most of their life.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for doing it, Dawn.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I love
big
it.
So now that I see that you're visibly relaxed,
A little bit more
you
relaxed.
feeling better?
A little bit better.
Let's
yes.
get her now. No.
All right. So let's start with Little Dawn. Little
gosh.
Dawn. Tell us about Irving Dawn.
Irving, Dawn.
Yeah,
Okay,
where'd you
so
grow up?
I was born in Irving, Texas. I grew up there. My mother had me. She was 17 years old, a junior in high school. Found out she was pregnant, and honestly, was very difficult for her. And actually had ideas and thoughts of not having me. My grandparents told her she should give me up for adoption. My mom thought about aborting me. I've had lots of deals with not feeling wanted, and man, you're gonna make me cry right off the bat. So yeah, definitely. And then grew up and had my brother, and I didn't have anybody. My mom had my brother and my sister, married my dad, I guess you could say, and then he left, and so then pretty much grew up with my mom, and then she remarried. Sorry, I'm not talking to the microphone. She remarried my stepdad, and yep, we lived in Irving, and I lived there till I was, I don't know, in 6th grade. Then we moved to Arlington. So I always liked living in the city. And then when I was in 8th grade, sadly, I had to move out here to the country, and I was not happy. I was not happy at all. But I grew to love it.
What was your worst fear about moving to the country?
Country people? I don't know, like,
Eat me a lot of peaches.
no.
Oh, presidents of the United States of
No,
America
no.
moving into the country.
Well, I mean, when we moved here, it was not under good circumstances. My grandparents, we lived in Irving. They had a farm out here, and we would come every couple of weeks or so, come out to the farm, see the cows. That was fun. But, I mean, I liked city life. I never thought I would live in the country. And my mom had lost her job, and actually pretty much we went bankrupt. We had no money. So when we had to move out here, it was very, like, earth-shattering. We were moving into my grandparents' they had a RV, not an RV, they had a trailer house that, like, the front house, half had fallen off of it. It was from 1960. And we moved out here. My sister and I had a bedroom that only a bed could fit in. My brother had to sleep in the living room on the couch, and half the front had fallen off. It was very, like, we was po.
Yeah.
It was not good. And then I had to move out here, and I didn't do well making friends. I didn't know where I was going to fit in, so I was scared. I just felt like I was starting to fit in schow.
When you say move out here, was it move out to Canton or Martinsville?
To Martinsville. Moved to
Okay.
Martinsville. No, I never went to Canton. I don't know anybody from Canton if it's not from our church or from when I worked
So
at
it
the
was
CrossFit gym.
small town. Like you skipped over the small town and went
Yes,
small.
I walked in the classroom, and I was like, "Oh, where's everybody else in our class? Like, where's everybody else in our grade?" And they were like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "I know we're in this math class together, but where's the hundreds and hundreds of other kids? Where are they?" And they were like, "No, there's 25 of us in this whole grade." And I still was like, no, you don't understand what I'm asking you. Where are the rest of the people in our grade?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
They
it.
didn't exist.
No, they
Yeah.
did not. It was it. So
Culture shock, right?
huge culture shock. Yes, my mind was like, okay, as soon as I graduate, I'm getting out of here. I am not living in the country. I will not be a country girl.
So during that time, what would you say your relationship with God was like?
From the time I was young, I really always felt like I'm a big time people pleaser, but I feel like God had put that in me that I just had something in me that I always wanted to seek after and know God. From the time I was little, my grandparents would take me to church. They were they loved church. So back to kind of like my dad issue, my biological father, he gave up all of his rights to me and my brother and sister, and my mom and my stepdad raised us. But my biological father's parents were still very much in my life. My grandparents, who I'm still very close to.
Me, mom, and papa.
My me, mom, papa, who I'm still very close to. They took me to church all the time. And I loved going to church. I loved being in church. But I don't feel like I ever had an experience with God. Like, I didn't get saved until we moved out to the country. And then I started getting my family to go to the little Baptist church down the road from the school. And then when I was in 8th grade, then actually in youth group, my youth leader, we were all sitting around the table, and he was like, okay, guys, let's all tell, our experience whenever we got saved, whenever we knew Jesus. And I was sitting there, and then I was like, I don't have one of those. And he was like, well, let's get you one. And I was like, he's like, do you want to do that? I remember in the bathroom, I started crying. And then I was like, yeah, I do. And so then he prayed with me through salvation's prayer, and then got saved. And that was it. I was like on fire. Everything my whole life I wanted to do was serve God, but had to do with, but a lot of it had to do, I had to work through that, not to be about works, because I can be that way very much so, that I'm, I want to do the right thing that was already innately in me, and I want to be a pleaser.
A little Christian jargon there. Mm-hmm. She says, be all about the works. What does that really mean?
What does that mean? Like, if I do enough good stuff, God's going to think I'm good enough.
Yeah.
Which isn't the truth.
Yeah.
But I struggle with that.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people do. Mm-hmm. A lot of it, I think it's the way we were raised.
It's innately our culture, though. Think about it. If we do good at the ball game, what does everyone around go, oh, man, we love you.
Man, you want to hang out?
Yeah,
Come
you
on,
blow it
let's
at the
go.
ball game. They're like,
yeah. Absolutely. I don't even know you. I'm so disappointed. But it's so true. Like, it's just in our culture, that kind of thing. It's kind of what we covered last week in Ephesians 2.
Yep.
Right? Saved by grace through faith for good works,
Yep.
not by good works.
Yep.
the good works actually come at the end of that.
Absolutely.
Understanding that is hard.
It's big.
It is.
It's a mind shift.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a whole...
And I have to tell myself that and work on that. And I mean, honestly, if I'm being honest, I have to not be like, people tell the story of the prodigal son, and Mike, actually, who was here a couple weeks ago, he was telling that one week in youth. And when we left, I was like, I can see that I can see myself as the brother. Sometimes that I'm like, oh, well, that's not fair. And I'm like, that's the wrong, I have to check myself, like, that is the wrong attitude.
Yep.
So who was your youth pastor, by the way?
My youth pastor was Tim Gandy, your cousin.
My cousin.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Small world.
Yes.
And who was your pastor?
My pastor was Brother Butch Smith then. Yep.
So Butch Smith, I just got to meet him not too long ago. He's the FCA guy. Like, he's the head of this area.
Yep.
Super good guy. I thought it was cool, full circle, how,
Yep.
he just kind of popped back into your life after all these years. And he's like, wow, that's cool. That's a neat thing.
Yep.
So what happened after that, after you got saved?
I mean, I just lived my life. I tried very much. I felt like I don't know why. I was the oldest kid, and it was like my responsibility almost to make sure my family was in church. I felt like I carried that very much. My parents were not ever really in church. I had, not a good home life at all. And so I tried very much to get my family in church and get my brother and my sister. And so then just doing that, going to school in Martinsville actually turned out to be a great thing for me, because I never played basketball when I was younger, even though, everybody knows Martinsville's all basketball. So I ended up playing basketball, being a part of a team, meeting good people. But then also for me, more was track. I enjoyed individual events better. But just being very involved in the school, I made good friends. And then I met you even. So that was very, very good.
Let's break this down real quick. I want to hear this.
Well, there's multiple stories to how Dan and I met, so it's kind of funny. Dan went to school in Martinsville in 7th grade, from 1st grade to 7th grade, correct? Or no?
No.
Kindergarten, skipped all that, then
I
came
went
back
to
again
Athens.
to 7th
Yeah, we
grade.
lived in Athens School District, even though we were 5 minutes from Martinsville. Districts were weird, and Athens didn't want people transferring out. So I had to go to Athens for a while, but then they released that, and I went to Martinsville one year in junior high, and
Yeah, 7th grade. So then I go there in 8th grade. I'm not trying to say anything against small schools or anything, but I get there and I was like, there are no cute boys in this school. What is going on here? And all the girls were like, you missed it last year. There was the hottest guy ever here, and he's gone now.
Bring him back.
Yes.
Bring him back.
So then one day he randomly came to the school just to see everybody and hang out. And I was like, oh my gosh, these girls weren't lying. This guy is hot. So we met, and then the school had this little thing called, oh my gosh, the Fall Festival. And then we ran something where you like put people in jail, and Dan was there at the Fall Festival. So I was like paying to put him in jail and chasing him down. Thought he was the cutest thing ever. And then did not see him again until we were 16. And in my head, I was always like, man, where was that Dan Morrow? He was the cutest guy I'd ever seen in my life.
where did you see me at 16?
Well, first I saw you one time at that restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you were right before you moved off. We were actually 15. I was driving to cheer camp. I was only 15. I didn't have my license yet.
Yeah.
And you were eating lunch, and I was like, oh my gosh, I think that was Dan Morrow. And then you were that was it. That was the epitome in the rest of my mind of the hottest guy ever.
That's my boy. No.
Yeah.
Well, it comes crashing down, though, guys. Just give it a little bit.
Let's build this
we're
thing
building
up.
a lot of things here, but it's fixing to take a nosedive.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
then when you moved back, which I didn't really know that he moved away. I barely knew him. I'd seen him a couple times. And then when he was 18, he had moved back, and he had a friend that had been calling me and talking to me. And then he was like, hey, you should come to my church with me. And I was like, okay, cool. I'll go to church with you. And when I got to church, Dan was there. I was like, oh my gosh, that's the Dan Morrow that I remember. And then is this where you want me to give the letdown? Actually, I saw you before that.
Yeah, you saw me in the parking lot.
At Walmart. We had
That's where my ego got shattered.
We had cross-country practice, and it was going to be the district meet in Athens, and we were practicing on the course. And afterwards, all the cross-country team, we were in our coach's Suburban. We stopped at Walmart for something, and your church band was out there playing. And all the girls once again were like, oh, it's Daniel Morrow.
Y'all were
he's
playing in
back."
the Walmart parking lot?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we were doing an outreach.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we were just sharing the gospel of Jesus, and we were doing worship right there at Athens Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And of course, I had just come back from Rhema.
Yeah.
So I was fired up.
Fired up.
You know, I was witnessing to everybody. I was going to get everybody saved, save the world. But I was also part of that cultish, the cool kid in youth group culture where, you know, I had huge pork chop sideburns. I dressed like a maniac. You know, I had dog chains around my neck. I was a skater punk, big Jinko jeans. The more freakishly I could look, the more I love Jesus.
That was the Christian culture a lot back then.
It was big time.
Yeah.
Remember the Alka-Seltzer plop
youth.
plop fizz fizz shirts? And I had that shirt on, I think, that day. And
You wore that shirt.
and
all
my
the
hair
time.
I had dyed it every color under the sun, so it was burned up. And she sees me up on stage singing, and go ahead.
So then all the girls were like, oh my gosh, it's Daniel Morrow. He's back. He's back from Oklahoma. There he is. And I was like, he's not as cute as I remember. Because I had him worked up so bad in my head.
Oh.
So then I ended up meeting your friend. Or I don't even know if I met him. He had my phone number or something, was calling me all the time, and then invited me to your church. And then when I showed it up at church and saw you again, I was like, oh, wait a minute. He is as hot as I remember. And he was up there playing his guitar in youth, and youth was over, and I just walked up to him, and I was like, did you need help, like, putting up some chords or doing anything? And he was like, nobody ever offers to help me. And I was like, well, they don't.
Full disclosure, that's the first and last time she ever helped me roll a cable.
That might be true. That might be true.
Ooh.
So then we started talking to each other right after that, and then wham bam, 4 months later we were married.
4 months.
4 months.
4 months.
Yes. Have you ever met Dan?
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't do anything on a slow pace.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
is that not true?
It is very true.
So, like I said, I was in a not very good, dysfunctional home. And I just saw Dan and I thought, I loved him so much. And he's such a great guy, but also I was like, oh, he loves me and he's going to save me and he's going to get me out of this and be my knight in shining armor.
Yeah.
And so
How old were you at the time?
18.
18?
Yep. One day I dropped we had planned we got engaged after 3 months. We got engaged.
Long engagement.
Yeah.
We
You
were
gotta make
planning
sure.
to get
Yeah. I had to double check. I had to pray. I was waiting for God to audibly speak it, you know.
Yeah.
we were planning to get married in June, and I had all this family drama. My mom, it's a dumb wedding. It was like, no, this person, like, you know, your real dad's not going to walk you down the aisle. Your stepdad has to walk you down the aisle. Oh, these people aren't invited. It just turned into all this drama, and I was like, I'm getting so much anxiety, and I don't even have a wedding yet. And we went to the movies on a date to see, and it was
Forces of Nature.
Forces of Nature. Not a
Dumb
great
movie.
movie, no. But he just looked at me at the middle of the movie and goes, you want to elope? And I was like, yes. Yes, I do. So
In the movie.
In the movie, yeah.
Heck yeah.
That was a
So-
Sunday night.
Was it?
Yeah.
So the next day, I dropped my brother and sister off at school, and then I drove to his house, picked him up. We drove to Oklahoma and got married.
I called in sick for work.
Yep.
Because I had I worked full time, and I was like, hey, I'm not feeling good.
So once you guys got married, did you tell your mom, "Hey, everything's off"? And did you move in
Well-
with Dan? How did that take place?
So
What was
I
next?
I did tell my parents that night. I said, hey, Dan and I, we're not going to have a wedding. We're going to elope. I didn't say we're going to elope the next day.
Yeah.
I just said, this is too much for me. We're going to elope. And so he told his parents he was going and everything that was
I
happening.
told my mom. I didn't tell my dad.
Yeah.
I did. I was like, gave mom the clue. I was like, we're not doing a wedding. We meant just elope.
Yeah.
That's what I left it at.
Mm-hmm.
And I called her on the way home from. I was like, well, hey, I got something new. And she's like, what? I was like, I got a wife. She's like, what? Yeah.
So why'd you have to drive to Oklahoma?
Because we wanted it now.
Okay.
And at the time in Texas, you had to wait 3 days.
I think
Okay.
you might still do. I don't know.
I didn't know.
I don't know if
Yeah,
you still
you
do
can
either,
get married
but
that,
then
Oklahoma, you can get married
You
that
can-
day.
yep.
You just have to have blood work. In Texas, it's like 3 days. And then-
Okay.
yeah.
So that's
So we
why.
went straight to the courthouse. They told
Yeah.
us to go across the street, get your needle,
Yeah.
blood checked, and we went right back across the street. And what was so funny is there was about a 6'4" black man with a pretty good size hairdo, and he had a gold cross that had rainbow colored rhinestones in it. And he was carrying a Bible that thick, and I looked over and I said, that man's going to marry us. And she's like, no. I was like, that man's going to marry us. You watch. His name was Raleigh.
Reverend Raleigh.
Reverend Raleigh. And that man grabbed us, and he goes, a family that prays together stays together. To this day, how do I remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Because it spoke life into us. And sure enough, that man was the man who married us, and he gave us a really cool little wedding ceremony, just us
Yeah.
in the courthouse there. And
Yep.
it was a really cool experience.
That's awesome.
No fluff.
No fluff.
No fluff.
No,
I'm a
there was
little.
no flow.
Maybe I'm dumb. Why did you have to do blood work?
Make sure we weren't related.
I
It's
don't
an old
know.
custom, an old law, but it's still a law.
Didn't know
think-
that.
It like tells you any different if you have anything, just so the other person knows what they're getting into.
Ah.
If
Yeah.
you had any
Mm.
type of diseases or whatever.
Absolutely.
I don't know. I was like, okay, cool. Yep, let's get married.
Mm.
So
So it's quick.
It was
Yeah,
quick.
it was
We
very
got
quick.
back and we got into Athens. I went straight to the Flame Motel, which
Uh-huh.
is the worst one in Athens.
it was
No
terrible.
offense, Flame, if you're listening. I don't think they're around anymore, but it was on the west side of town. It was the cheapest thing ever, and I
Yeah.
rented 3 nights. That's all the money I had. So I rented 3 nights, and I'm like, okay, God, we got 3 nights to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I worked really hard back then, long hours, and I showed up at the motel. The second night, her stepdad figured out where we were because we kept it on the down low. He called me up, and he goes, "You worm, you're just a worm. How dare you steal my daughter?" And blah blah blah. You're a worthless loser. And I'm like, I ain't listening to this. I hung up on him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And anyway, we found a
So a good start.
great
Yeah.
start. Yeah. We found an apartment, and this lady, what was her name?
I don't know, babe.
Man, she smoked Pall Malls like 100s, but the little short thing, nice as can be.
Mm-hmm.
And I told her, I was like, look, I don't have the deposit, but I've got to have a place to live. We're day 3 of the motel, and I'm out.
Yeah.
Can you give me till Friday to give you half the deposit? She worked with me, and she let us in. It was $300, the deposit, and We got in an apartment, building 50 or room 505 there at the Summit Apartments in Athens, and that was our start.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was just us.
Yep.
The parents were all mad. You know, they were mad, and they were like, "We'll show them.
Mm-hmm.
We'll show you how hard life is." And
yeah, your parents were nice.
yeah. My parents were definitely.
Yes.
My mom ended up throwing us a wedding reception, and
Yes.
they gave us a bunch of gifts. They helped us a lot, but
Yep.
I was more talking about her parents. Her parents were like, they were pissed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
They
they
were
were
not
upset.
happy about it for sure. But yep, so we got married, and then I went back to school the next day.
High school.
Yeah, I was still in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go back to school. It was funny too because I couldn't remember, but it was something. We were going to some National Honor Society thing, and you're supposed to have a dress. I didn't even pack a bag really. My dad came by and like threw it out at the school in the parking
Threw it out
lot.
in the
Threw
parking
it
lot.
at me like because I called my mom. I was like, please bring me something I can wear to this.
Oh.
So yeah, it was not an easy time. A lot of people in school, like I said, I was very like rule follower, do everything just right, and everybody was like shocked. They were like, Dawn, I cannot believe you went and you got married. Like I didn't tell any of my friends. I didn't tell anybody it was happening.
Well, also at this time, I had been banned from Martins Mill School.
That's true.
Completely. This district attorney of Texas sent a letter to my mom and dad, and it was like, Dawn Morrow is banned from any premise, So I couldn't even go to prom with her when we were married because I was banned.
Oh, wow.
And so rule follower over here, rebel over here.
That's why I was so attracted to you, I'm sure.
Yeah, we were like
Yeah.
Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah. You're going to tell a rule follower and a non-rule follower story. You better tell the homecoming story. You love that story.
Well, this is how I got banned. Homecoming, I had gotten home from work. I put on some khakis.
Hold on 1 second.
Yes.
Martins Mill is so small, guys. It does not have football. Okay? So homecoming is a basketball game. And believe it or not, the girls are a big deal for their homecoming. And it's girls and boys, and it's both homecoming at the basketball game. So anyways.
But the girls' basketball it's life or death.
Yeah.
And so I show up. Of course, Martins Mill, they already don't like me because I dress weird.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a little bit of a fanatic, you know. So I buy a ticket out. The ticket booth was out front of the gym. And so I bought a ticket. Well, then as you walk through, you go through concessions. And then at the door, the principal was there. She would take your ticket and then let you on in. So I had a dozen roses that I had bought for her. And I was in slacks and a dress shirt. And I was looking nice for homecoming. And when I get around to the ticket booth, Miss Tidwell, I love you if you're listening. She's like, Mr. Morrow, no, you are not coming in this game. And I was like, well, I bought a ticket. And she's like, no, you are a distraction to Dawn Yell. And you are a distraction to the student body. And she just gave me the and I'm like, what is this? What have I done here? You know, I'm mad. I'm getting mad at this point.
Yeah.
They escort me out. So I sit out in the parking lot for a while, kind of just figuring out what I'm going to do. What's the next steps? And that rebellious side of me kicks in. And so I drive my pickup home. I'm sitting around, and one of my buddies comes over, and then another buddy comes over, and we're like, okay. They hate Martins Mill, by the way. I'm not going to disclose who they are. At this time, they were like, yeah, Martins Mill, screw Martins Mill. So I decided to get one of my signature white T-shirts. White T-shirts were it back then with a pocket. And I get a magic marker, and I go to working on that shirt. And I draw on the front, school sucks, and so does principals. Mm-hmm. And on the back, I wrote, Dawn number 20 is mine. Mm-hmm. And for some weird reason, I cut the nipples out and painted my nipples black where they shined through really good.
I don't know what you were doing.
And, well, it was all a scheme with the guys around me. They were coming up with things to shock factor.
Egging you on, yeah.
Yeah, shock factor.
Yeah.
So I get the shirt on. I get my Jinko jeans on with holes all in them. They're all tore up. And my skater garb. And I got my dog chains on my neck. And I jump on my motorcycle. And this is where it gets really, the plot thickens. I don't know what I was thinking. Like today's day and age, you'd be tackled and probably shot. But I drove my motorcycle into the foyer of the gym and locked it and took off running. I ran past the ticket booth and ran all the way to the home side down in the student section. And I'm like, hide me. And so they put up a wall. You know, they're all hide me. And then I just go to riling up. I just build this thing and they're screaming. The student body is screaming. it's getting wild.
Yeah.
We're yelling and just stirring them all up. My buddies are, by this point, they had snuck in and they're riling everybody up. And the crowd's going nuts. There's actually a picture of me running across the end of the court in that shirt. Her Meemaw took. I have it. I showed the youth kids. Like, see what can happen.
Yeah.
So they called the sheriff.
Uh-huh.
And so 20, 30 minutes from there, I think I'm scot-free. I'm like, all right, showed them. They're like all tapping me, and I can feel it. You know how you start to feel the heat coming in? The heat is there. And I look down, and there's a sheriff in full with his hand on his gun, and he's going. And I'm like, uh-oh. Here I am, this Rama kid, because I'm like on fire still. I'm like, ministry.
I was gonna say, you say you're rebellious, but you.
I was.
You
I
were
didn't do
seeking
drugs.
God.
I didn't
Yeah,
drink.
like
I didn't cuss. I didn't do anything. I was just this saint. But I rebelled hard when I drove that motorcycle in that foyer of that gym.
Mm-hmm.
And they come get me, and he pulls me outside, and he's like, "What in the HE double hockey stick are you doing? And why is your motorcycle sitting there?"
Yeah.
Well, I told him the whole story. I was just honest. I was like, "Man, I didn't do anything to these people. Like, I just bought a ticket." And he goes, all right. Here's what you're going to do. Get that motorcycle out of there. Ride it home. And this motorcycle wasn't registered, by the way. It had a plate I bought it from JL Hurd, and it was registered in 84 the last time. So it was an old bike. I didn't have a license. He's like, get that thing off the street, get home, clean up, and come back. Meet me here. So I did. When I get there, he gets Miss Tidwell out there, and he gets me, and he goes, all right, Miss Tidwell, Mr. Morrow has agreed to behave himself and follow the rules. And you're going to agree to let him in. And if I ever hear of you doing this to any other kids again, we're going to have big problems. You're not allowed to do this. And boy, it made her mad. Mm-hmm. And that was the demise. So then from that point on, at every ball game, we would get really loud.
Squeak
and
your
we would
shoes
get obnoxious.
on the floor
Yeah. Anyway, she got mad, and she ended up getting. She petitioned to the state. She wrote a letter saying this kid is a menace, and so I had to go and ask her for forgiveness to go to prom with my wife. And Miss Tidwell allowed me to come to prom, and we made amends, and we buried the hatchet, and all went on. But the irony of it is, 20 years later, I get on the school board, and the guy that was the president of the school board, he had to disclose it because he was there. He's like, you know, guys, there's a lot of irony in this room. That man drove his motorcycle into the gym, and now he's the president of the school board.
Yeah, I think then you became the president. Yep.
So, anyway,
and you're still on the school board.
Still on the school board over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Still doing things over there.
My, how times have changed.
Yeah.
Oh, how the turntables have turned.
That's exactly right.
Anyways.
So it was easy being
was
so
really-
young. And,
young and married.
Yeah.
It was a cakewalk.
It was really easy. And we had not long after we married, we got a kid on the way.
Yeah.
And we're in ministry at the church in Athens, like full time. They had us get into youth.
That was later.
Was it later?
We were in the youth for a while, and then
They took us out of youth, and they wanted us to be the children's.
and then we did children's.
We led children's ministry for several years.
Yes. And then we got back into youth again when the kids got older.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then,
But yeah, it was very difficult for sure, being 18 and 19 and having a baby, and all of our friends were in college and doing other things, and we were, and I also was but I met Dan, and we got married, and so I was in his group now. I didn't have a spot because
my group was all people we grew up in the ministry with.
grew up in the ministry.
They were all weird,
homeschooled.
homeschool, weird ministry kids. Which I thought they weren't weird. I thought everyone else was weird.
Yeah. So then, like I said, I graduate high school, then I have kids, and all my friends are gone, and I was very, very lonely. Like, I would go to church every Sunday, and all I would do on most of the Sundays was just sit in the nursery. And now, looking back, I'd be like, I'm not going to go to church because there's no reason for me to go and sit in a nursery all day. You know, there was no live stream or live feed or any of that kind of, you weren't watching it on TV. And I literally would go home every night and pray, God, please bring me one friend. God, please, I just need one friend in this place. Because all those girls grew up with Dan. They were his sister's best friends. They were all friends, and they did not include me in their group at all. And it was very difficult to be a part of. So,
and of course, I was so insensitive to the thing. I'm like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Like, this is where God's got us. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? So I'm pouring gas on already fire, that she's already hurting. And I'm just dumping more. I'm putting salt in the wound is a better analogy. I'm just, thinking that I'm doing something good, that I'm going to motivate her somehow. And what I'm really doing is just like cutting her off and, destroying trust.
Absolutely.
yeah.
So, but church was still a thing, for you guys.
Oh,
we
hardcore.
loved church. That's all we did.
Oh, at that
Every
time,
night.
man, we had a Sunday morning service long. It was like a 3-hour service. That's one service.
Yes.
Then we had a Sunday night service. So we just had enough time to run Taco Bell because I had music practice. And my dad was the music Nazi, we had to be polished.
Yeah.
And so practice times were very, very important. All I did was play music back then. And then, of course, we had Monday night prayer night. We had Tuesday night leadership meeting. We had Wednesday night services.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we snuck youth in there somehow. And then we had Friday night music practice. So 5-6 nights of the week, we were at the church, and then all day Sunday.
Yeah.
And we would have our group. We had like a honeymooners group and a newlywed group. I mean, we didn't miss anything at church ever.
Everything was like just...
You did all that. You went to church. Then you didn't. I'm getting ahead.
Yes.
Sorry.
So when we stopped going to church.
Yes.
So we went there a long time, and we loved it. And then the church was in Athens, and then they moved to actually into the Martins Mill on Highway 19, and they moved there. And then our pastors ended up getting a divorce, and it was like just
And at that time, how many kids do you guys have?
4.
So
Then we had
all 4 there.
Yeah. It only took 4 years to have those jokers.
Okay.
We had 4 and 4.
Boom, 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 boom.
Boom, boom, boom.
Dawn's Fertile Myrtle. That's her nickname. You just look at her, she's pregnant.
Gotcha. So church closes down. What year is this? Can you tell me again?
05, 6.
Yeah, I
Somewhere
can't think
in
of it in
there.
that
06
terms. I think no, it was later than that because I thought the twins were like in 2nd grade.
07 maybe?
Yeah, I don't know.
07, 08.
03.
Okay.
It's a blur because a lot
Yeah.
of this I blocked out because it was we were the youth pastors at that time, and we had a really vibrant youth group of Martins Mill kids because we were right there close, and the Martins Mill kids were just flocking. God was moving. Like we had powerful worship times. We had just really we just did some cool things with youth, and God was moving. And then all of a sudden one day it was like shut down. We're getting a divorce. It's over.
Yeah.
Wait,
Like-
who's getting a divorce? The pastors are
The
getting a
pastors,
divorce?
pastors, which
yeah.
are also his parents' best friends.
Yeah, they were
the
best
associate
friends, and
pastors.
they had all done ministry together since I was 10 years old. They had grown up together too,
Yeah.
so they had a long relationship, and those people poured their hearts in it together, all of them. To this day, I'm brokenhearted for them, just to see them pour it in and it end up like that. But,
Yeah.
I want to go back to you, Dawn, real quick. So you have the 4 kids. Do you have a relationship with your parents at this time still? Like, is it restored? Is it
No.
still?
Well, at that time I was trying to have a relationship with my parents, but my mom could never understand where I would say, hey, you can have a relationship with my children, but I have to be there at all times. My mom was never allowed to be alone with my children. And so she couldn't understand that. Then I was like, these are mine to take care of that God has placed under me. And she always resented me for that. And it would always be like, well, they can't even ride the car with me. I was like, no, they can't, but we're going to the game. We can go to lunch. We can go do these things. You can come to my house. And so it just, no matter what I gave, it felt like it was never good enough for her. So I didn't really have a good relationship with my mom. Thankfully, Dan's mom, whenever I got married, Dan's mom, I mean, she took me under her wing, and she treated me like a mother. Like, that woman is like a mother to me. She's just one of the most amazing women I've ever met in my life, and she genuinely is my mom.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I got married when I was 18, and I tried so many times with my mom. There's other things that have happened, and if we want to get into some crazy stuff, Dan, found literature that my mom had written, and it was not good. And I pretty much told him he was a liar, and my mom wouldn't do such things. And then I had to confront my mother over it, and she had done it. And it was...
And that's what started where she couldn't see the kids unless you were there?
Well, no. I mean, okay, David, we're just going to go all into it. What started it was that my entire life that my stepdad molested me.
Oh, wow.
And so when I had kids, I was like, my kids are not allowed to be around them. My mom wouldn't believe me, and she made me call my dad, which so crazy that I say my dad, because my stepdad raised me because my real dad abandoned me, and I called him dad. And so she made me call him on the phone, and then, she was like, she was on another line, and then he was just like, finally admitted it. And of course, it was in such a, and this is a good thing for some people, fine, but I was in such this Christian state, in this Christian world, that I was like, it's okay, it's all under the blood of Jesus, we're just going to let it, go, but you're still not allowed to be around my kids, but I will still allow you in my life, which to me I think is unhealthy, because at that time, I did not deal with any of the stuff that had to do with it. So then come back, my mom would still say, well, can your dad and I watch the kids? And I'm like, Mom, I've already explained to you why he can't. So the fact that you want to allow that means I can't trust you, and you wouldn't believe me when I told you those things happened to me. Then my mom would come back and say, you don't understand how hard that was on me. And I'm like, I don't understand. You're right, I don't.
Yeah.
And so I was dealing with all those kind of things. So I'm like, it was not just a little surfacey little thing. And then
Absolutely.
then Dan found this book that my mom wrote me and my brother and sister as the main characters. It was a very sexual content book. So then
It was disgusting.
and he told me that it happened, and I told him he was a liar. And then I sat my mom down one day. I said, Mom, Dan said you did this. And she was like, well, I didn't mean it. I just liked y'all's names. And I was like, so I had a lot of disturbing things that I did not want brought into my home and
absolutely.
around my children.
So during all this, and I'm sorry for getting too...
No, it's okay.
But during all this, did you have anybody to lean on? I know you were saying that you were having hard times with people at church, and
so at church,
did you go through this alone?
I mean that was my whole life, was go through everything alone. That's a lot of reason why Dan and I probably had a lot of issues in our younger marriage, because I had to deal with everything. I tried to protect my brother, tried to protect my sister, tried to protect my family, to make sure those things weren't happening to them, even though I couldn't stop anything that was. But Dan would try very hard to be there for me, but Dan could not understand it.
I couldn't fathom.
No, he didn't have anything like that ever.
Yeah.
So
It was hard to fathom.
until our marriage hit a very bad spot. After we'd been married 7 years, and I went to therapy and saw Earl, who we all know, that's whenever I was able to really deal with a lot of those things. But until then, I just kind of suppressed it and tried my best to be that perfect Christian person that I'm not going to let any bad thing, even though, as y'all have heard my children and they've been on this podcast, I didn't do the best job raising them, but I did my best. I'm sorry, it makes me want to cry. But because I hadn't dealt with my own things. Had I dealt with those things, I could have been a better mother. But that's why.
How are you to know that, though, with the way, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
I did my best, but the works is not what does it. You've got to deal with and work through those things.
Yeah.
So, anyway, yes, no, I don't have the best relationship with my mom still to this day. I've tried, and I've really tried, but there's come a point where I'm like, I forgive her. I love her. I want the best for her, but I can't keep letting that in my life right now at this time. I just can't do it. It's just not. It's been a very difficult road for me, and to walk through that in my Christian life of what's the right line? When do you not let someone in, because Jesus forgives me and Jesus gives me all these great gifts and this family, and so then what am I doing to her? And I've had to come to a reconciliation inside myself and say, God loves me and he's going to help me walk through this path, and eventually, I don't know what'll happen. Eventually there could be great reconciliation there, and we could come back together and love each other and have a relationship. And I still love her, but I don't know what the future looks like for that.
So you sitting here today is a miracle.
A little bit, I think so.
A little.
It's a huge.
That is a miracle.
It's a miracle she's alive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The level of trauma that this woman has endured, she's tough. She's tough. She's resilient. She's amazing. Very few people have to deal with that level of trauma. I mean, she didn't really go into detail, but the day on the phone when the mom was so manipulative in nature, she was taunting Dawn to get her to call the stepdad and call him out on her own abuse that she's been telling her mom all these years.
Yeah.
Mom's psycho. You know, Marsha's psycho. Marsha, if you're listening, you're psycho. You
Dan.
want to know why you can't get a relationship? It's because you're psycho.
Dan.
Like, straighten it up. I'm sorry.
Be nice.
I'm very nice.
You are very nice.
Like that.
You've
She
been
needs to
very
understand
kind.
that, because that would bring healing to her. Because the very reason she's not in the life today is because she will not look at herself. She refuses. It's
hard.
someone else's fault.
It's hard.
She has hers.
Yep.
She has her things, but I did try to do my best with my kids, but when you're doing that, you don't realize I'm not recreating the same thing, but I am recreating.
The pendulum swings
Yes.
way far the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Trying to protect them.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have no more questions. I'm
I was like, I don't even remember what your question was.
yeah,
Dave.
yeah.
Break
Like,
it
thank
down
you
over
for
here.
sharing that. First
Yeah.
off, Don, because
Yeah.
I think there's so many people who are listening. Let's just be real.
I
This
hope so.
like these things happen.
Mm-hmm.
Not good.
Yeah.
Terrible. Makes
Yeah.
me mad.
Yeah.
They happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you're a testimony, honestly,
Yeah.
to be able to be sitting here today in the role and the function that you have here at Radiant Church and doing all that you're doing. Like, it's a miracle from God. You had to do a lot of hard work,
I have.
and God's been, I think, faithful.
God has been very faithful. My life I'm so blessed. And, it's hard to hear the stories of my children and to hear their hurt. And one day I was listening to Dylan's podcast, and man, that was hard. And I was just thinking, like, for parents that are listening to that, they're like, how did Dan and Dawn be able to hear their kids say that? It was not easy. It was not easy for us to hear our kids go, well, you hurt me when you did this, because you want to go, well, you don't know what I've been through. But that does not matter. That doesn't matter. You want your child to be able to come to you and to tell you their pain, and you just want to be able to hear them and love them and embrace them and say, I'm so sorry that you had to experience that. But it is hard sometimes that, thankfully I have a great husband that we were able to with each other. If I would ever be like, those kids, and he'd be like, Don, and then he'd be like, those kids, and I'd be like, Dan, that's their pain. And he's like, you're right, babe, you're right.
No,
And-
when we had Eve on, she was saying, the best when she decided to let's forgive you or whatever. She referenced that,
Yeah.
that you have a little girl, and and that's just what right now I'm emotional and hearing your story, because I'm seeing kind of what that little girl went through, and it's not easy.
No.
You're trying your best, and it's just So, it's I don't know. I just feel like it's hard to, parent and do all these things. It's not easy. It's not an easy task like everybody thinks it is.
No.
We all have our struggles. My wife has her struggles, and you and my wife relate a ton.
Yeah.
And so that's another reason why I was, over here tearing up, because there's a lot of similarities, and we're two broken people trying to raise, and do the best we can, and it's tough, and ultimately, obviously, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, because once me and my wife came together, and when people come together and they realize the answer is Jesus, like, we just need to be closer to Him, and just, I don't know, you're gonna take it over. I got so much emotion right now going on.
No.
Yeah.
Everybody's got pain, trauma. Obviously, Don, that's a different level than I've ever known. You know what I'm saying? Like, shoot, I keep saying you're a miracle, because you are.
Yeah.
Thank
It
you.
is a miracle what God is doing in and through your life right now. But let's transition for a second, okay?
Okay.
Let's transition. Okay, church shuts down, all that kind of stuff. Where does that put you guys? Like, what do you do?
We're brokenhearted. We're right back to square one. She's right back into I'm abandoned. Now, not only did my family abandon me, my dad abandoned me, but now my church has abandoned me. And I'm feeling that same way. I'm feeling like, oh, man, we poured our money, we poured our time, we poured our hearts, our gifts, our talents. We poured it all into this thing, and now it's just vaporized in one day. God, what are you doing? So we were in the desert. We just withdrew, and we started having bad marriage problems, and that's when, like she said, we went to.
Yeah.
That's how we got into therapy with Earl, and we just realized that life as we knew it was over.
Yeah.
Life as we knew it was over. Like the fake and the trying to suppress. You can pack it down only so long before it's all the way up here, and then you're at the end of the rope.
Yep, it's coming out somewhere, some way.
It's coming out, and that's where we were at.
Yep.
So we spent a long period of
Yep.
we would go to church, but it was sporadic. And, you know,
We would go to church sporadically. We never had anywhere that we plugged back in again.
Yeah.
And then, and that was for years. Our kids,
they wanted to go to church. They went to youth group over at Martin's Mill. They would go on Wednesday nights, loved it. They went to the bridge, loved it. The bridge was good to them. The bridge, man, I'm thankful for the bridge.
Yeah.
They, you know, in that gap, in that time period, God found a way to still feed our kids while we were hurting, while we were trying to recover. We went to the bridge there for a little bit, and we liked it. But it was hard to.
we just didn't have anywhere that we felt that we fit. And then I started going to CrossFit and met Sam and Ashley. And then in turn, like Adam started, then I got you to come, then Adam came, and then you and Adam met. But then we were so much into sports, our kids, that we turned away. We never turned away from God, but going to church, then we would, Sundays, I mean, now we were just discussing it with somebody else the other day. If your kids are doing any extracurricular outside of school sports, which most of them are, it's on Sundays. Your AAU basketball league, your teams, your sporting events, they're on Sundays. And I remember multiple times we'd be like, yeah, we're going to come. Oh, the twins have a game that Sunday. Oh, Luke has a game that Sunday. Somebody had a game. It was always something. We finally came to church and we loved it. But also we started coming, and Dan actually got more involved than I did. Because I always felt like I was trying to drag the family. You know, when it's the mom dragging the family, and the husband comes sometimes reluctantly. And when we started coming here, he started coming more. And I said, I ain't doing it again. I was like, there is no way. You're not getting me in that church all the time like I've done it. I've already done it. I've already been there. I've already been hurt by it. It's not happening. He would go to church on Sundays, and I'm like, I'm going to brunch with my friends. Bye. And he would come. Luke, the twins were 15 or so, and they would come sometimes with you. Eve would normally come. But I said, I'll give you once a month. That's what I'll come to church, once a month. I'm like, I'm not going every single Sunday. So, and then couldn't help it. I love this place so much.
Well, here, hold on, because that's where I want to go, right?
Yeah.
Because now, you led right into it. Great job.
Thanks.
Now, you go from that, and here we are now, and you're like on staff here. You're here all the time. You're doing all these kind of things. Dawn, I want to know this. Because I've heard through the grapevine, not telling you who told me this. I bet you can figure it out pretty quick. But you maybe had mentioned one time, I will never work for the church.
Yep, I did. I did say that.
Right?
Yeah.
So how does, I don't know, what does that look like? I'm very interested to know, like, going from there to now where you are, not saying everything's perfect and all that kind of stuff, but how does that happen?
Well, I mean, going back to what I said, and I don't know, I think, in my mind, I feel like this isn't everyone, but I'm telling you, from the time I was small, I just always loved God and wanted to serve God. And so even when we came back and I still had all that hurt, I was like, not going to do it. But I mean, God's going to feed me this much. Well, guess what? I'm going to want more of it. That's just what's in me.
That's good.
And so we would come, and I'm like, okay, well, I feel bad. Dan's there. I'm not going to miss another Sunday. And then there were multiple times I'd be like, I'll just watch you on the live stream, which I did. Or I'm like, I'm not coming early. And then this place, I started meeting other people, making relationships, for one thing, of course, meeting Jessie, who became one of my very best friends. And Jessie's not going to let you miss. She's going to be like, where were you? Why weren't you there? What's happening?
She don't play games.
No, she does not.
When it comes to that stuff.
No. So I just really I loved it. I loved your messages were just speaking to me so much. And I just wanted to be in church. But then it was I had to break those walls down, because I still had that wall. That's fine. I'll go, and I'll go every Sunday. But when it switches to services, I'm like, I'm not going to both services. There's no reason for me to be there for that. You know, I always had a barrier that then I had to break down. And then when Dan, started doing music more, and then it was like, Dawn, Adam wants me to come to the meetings on Wednesdays. I was like, well, you go to the meetings on Wednesdays. I'm not on anything. I'm not going to the meetings on Wednesdays. And then I think one was Wednesday, you said something to Dan, like, well, why doesn't Dawn come with you? And he's like, I don't know. So he was like, Dawn, you need to come with me. So I came, and then all the ladies would be up here working, and I'm like, I'm not working here. That's not happening. I love this church, but this church is not going to be my life. It's not going to be everything I do revolves around Radiant Church.
Yep.
If I say it, I'm just going to have to eat some crow, because that's normally what happens, because I turn around and do it. And then it was funny. And I mean, I love this place so much. I love the people here. I have made connections with people here, and I've seen people's lives change. I've seen my life change, my kids. It's been such a blessing. But I made a joke in there with all the ladies, and I was like, that's fine, but I will not be working here. Like, it is not happening, guys. Like, I can't do it. I want to be here, and I want to just come here and enjoy it and be fed.
Yeah.
And then I think you had went to something, and then you called Dan. You're like, what do you think about Dawn being my assistant?
Well, I had to call the guy, right?
Well, yeah,
I had to call the guy. Because what I needed at the time is church is growing. Like, I couldn't keep things straight. This is Adam. This is Adam's brain, right? Like, in my good intentions, I'm losing track of things.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, man, who could do it, right? Because that's like, who could do it? And then I was like, I think Dawn could do it. But it's gonna. I don't know. This could end up in World War III. Let's see what happens. So I called Dan and I asked him, and he didn't say yes or no or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And obviously
then he asked me, and I was like, I don't know. What's that going to entail? What am I going to do? And I'm not going to lie. I love it so much. It's like the perfect fit for me. Like, I'm like, oh, wait, I have to organize, and then I need to know dates, and I need to.
She goes on and on and on a weekly basis about how much she loves what she does.
Yeah.
The level of fulfillment. I've never seen her like this. And that goes for me too, being able to do it together and just being able to be a part. And, the thing is God was gently taking every situation and just pulling us right back in.
Yeah.
Just right back in. Restoration. You want it? Right back in.
Yep.
It's just His grace and His mercy is just overwhelming sometimes, especially when you go to revisit. We start revisiting this stuff, and I forget all the stuff that we went through. I forget all the, all the things that God just showed up and helped us through. And
yeah,
I don't know, man. I'm so thankful.
Yeah.
Well, we're thankful for y'all.
So thankful.
So much. Don, what would you? I don't know. I haven't asked anybody this question. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but. What would you tell somebody who, like, looking from the outside and who kind of has, like, a similar story? You know what I'm saying? Now, like, as far as, I mean, you got church hurt, you've got childhood pain, wounds, all that kind of stuff. And what would you tell somebody about Jesus? Does that make sense?
About
like
Jesus?
Yeah, like, because I
would just say, I mean, number one, he just loves you so much. His love for you is not conditioned by what you've been through or your hurt or your pains. That's not saying He wasn't there and He didn't love you enough. Because I think that's something I would struggle with. Like, why would God allow me to go through these things if He loves me, if He's there? And I've had to learn, like, God loves me so much. He was with me through every one of those circumstances. I could have ended up in a much different state than where I am now. So I just think His love is so strong. To me, it's palpable.
Yeah.
It's like I can feel it. And when I look back in situations in my life and the hard things that I've had to walk through, now I can look back and be like, God was with me there. He was actually, I'm trying to think of the right word, but He was protecting me in that situation when I felt like I was not protected. I felt like I was alone. I dealt a lot with feeling alone and abandoned. And now I can say, Jesus is with me always in every step of every situation that I walked through. And He was protecting me and watching over me. And then I was able to have someone like my husband brought into my life, Dan, and just my kids and everything that's come out of that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be the person I am if I hadn't gone through that. Like Dan and I, we've talked about gone through our school. That was my side of the mountain, and it wasn't necessarily fun for me to go through. But something Earl said was pretty much the things we've gone through are our ministry. That God, we can use those, and those are our ministry. And that's what I've had to come to terms with. Like, it's okay. That's my ministry, and now I can help others.
Wow, absolutely. And I see you doing it. I see you doing it from the youth to the ladies in the office to all this stuff that's going on from the media team. You have strong connect. I mean, you're doing it. you're doing it, and just freaking proud of you, honestly.
thank you.
And I'm being honest, just so proud of you for where you've been, where you're at now, allowing God to continue to work in your life. It's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Well, thank you.
Babe, I'm proud of you too. Thanks for
Aw.
coming on this podcast.
Yeah.
This is a big step for Dawn. Dawn is very much behind the scenes, and
Absolutely.
but I don't think you realize how many people you're going to help.
Oh my
Sharing your testimony of what God can do with dark stuff.
God. Yes.
Yeah.
Dark stuff.
And we didn't even touch all my stuff.
Oh,
My
God, no,
anxiety and
yeah, we'll
that
save,
God
we'll
was
save
Saving that
that.
for the next
through.
episode.
Part
She's,
two.
she's
Part
dangling
three.
a character, a carrot. I mean,
hey,
Part 2.
yeah.
God can use you no matter what you've been through, and where you think you're too far gone. God can use you.
Amen.
Amen.
Well,
That's-
thanks for
that's
coming
all
on
right.
and being
Yeah.
vulnerable and
Thank
opening
you for
up
having
and
me.
giving us a little sneak peek. Obviously part 2's to come. So I'm excited, but thank you for doing that.
Yeah, this was awesome. Welcome.
Ruby, thank you for being on the podcast too.
Star
You're
of the
your
show.
emotional support dog for mom.
Absolutely.
You did pretty good today. Guys, had fun.
Have fun. Love y'all.
See you in the next one.